Hi, I'm John Williams. I'm the President and CEO of the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. So this is the latest season in the New York Fed's Banknotes podcast called Banking Culture Reform, Norms, Mindsets, and Decision-Making. We're going to have 8 episodes featuring 8 interviewees representing a broad range of experiences. We have a banker and a regulator, as well as a neuroscientist and chief flight director at NASA. We really want to understand what drives behavior and what drives decision-making within organizations.
You've talked about this a little bit before. Mark Mortensen, one of our guests, described a story that I think you've actually heard him tell about an executive who put a banana peel in an elevator and didn't make an express rule about picking up banana peels in elevators. And it took half a day before anybody picked up the banana peel. People would get on the elevator and be like, oh God, somebody looked at the banana peel before. That's disgusting. And then walk off and not pick it up. And he said, that's culture. Like that, getting people to take accountability and say, this is my elevator, I'm going to pick up this banana peel is culture. And I'm curious about your reaction to that story.
I think it's a great example of how are people empowered to be able to take actions and I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do here, but I'm going to use my judgment and do what I think makes sense. I go back to the basic kind of observation that we often think about the surface things, like how did we get this outcome, or why did we make this mistake, or how did this happen? But really, when you peel away the layers, what you realize is that there's just a basic approach to doing something that is very embedded in the organization that's just leading to those outcomes, rather than someone consciously perhaps making that decision. We started this whole process really focused on lapses in behavior and misbehavior, and thinking about, well, what are the cultural aspects that lead to those types of actions, and how do you change those cultures so that you avoid those kind of things? And thinking about that leads you down the road of realizing that culture is throughout an organization. It affects all the decision making, and you really need to understand what's driving the culture and what kind of cultures that leaders design and build in their organizations, rather than just looking at the outcomes in the organization.
So what kinds of things do you hope that people will take away from this series and from other work that the New York Fed's doing on culture?
Well, I think that the first and foremost is that we learn from each other. And, the past events that we've had, and especially during the pandemic, have taught us that, different organizations face similar issues. And so seeing how organizations not only build culture, but how that culture affects their decisions and ability to adapt to changing circumstances is also something I personally found very informative and interesting.
We say culture is important, culture matters. Well, how?
We're powered by our brains. We're not always rational. We are influenced by others.
I think I'd start with looking at what's called the better than average effect.
So one of the things we look for picking flight directors is what we call command presence, right? You kind of just look at people like, you better get it together. We got stuff to do, right?
Good practice would be for a leader to say, well, this is a mistake I made recently, and this is what I did about it.
I can't emphasize enough the disempowerment of the lonely decision maker.
So the opposite of what we think of as an ethical decision frame, we can think of as a game frame.
It doesn't make you unethical to wrestle with this. The smart money is we help you to try to figure this out.
This is Banknotes, Banking Culture Reform.